Hi, I'm Lenise Brothers, a registered nutritionist, women's health, hormone, and menstrual cycle coach, and the founder of Eat, Love, Move, a nutrition and well-being practice. This is the Period Story Podcast, where in each episode, I sit down with a guest to talk about their period story. We get behind some of the myths and misconceptions about periods and so much more. Now, on to today's guest. On today's episode, we have Katy Lindemann. Katy is a writer and patient advocate in addition to her day job as a digital strategist. Following multiple rounds of IVF and 2 miscarriages, in 2017, she was told her body would never be able to sustain a pregnancy. She now writes about infertility and pregnancy loss and advocates for better understanding of the patient perspective of fertility issues. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Great to be on.
So let's start off with a question I ask everyone. Tell me the story of your first period.
Yeah, so I was 14. I was the girl who had like the flattest chest and, at school where you could see everyone's bra. And I was the one who, thank God Marks and Spencer's made a crop top with a bra back because there was nothing going on. And my mum was 16 when she got her period. So because I'm identical to her in everywhere, I sort of assumed I was gonna it was gonna be them. And so I remember at 14 there was some blood in there and I thought, oh man, maybe I've caught myself or something like that. It just didn't occur to me because in my mind I was oh, it's 16 or something, and I didn't have boobs, so I was I wasn't expecting it, even though 14 is late. Most of my friends at school, I just literally was have I caught what's happened? And then suddenly, it was just Deus Ex Machina. I was oh, maybe that's a period. And I was so stupid because anybody else, but because I just wasn't expecting until 16. It is so ridiculous. But yeah, so it was just oh my God, that's actually a period. Oh, how funny, so that it was just, I just felt really foolish.
So when you got it, what did you do next? Who did you talk to?
I think I probably had a conversation with my mum going Mum, is it? I think I sort of thought I thought I would probably needing a bra, I thought would come first. And they still hadn't turned up. So I think I was just sort of what do you think? And I think she was well, yeah, it probably could be a bra. I was oh, okay. So she was all right, well, I'll get some. And again, I don't think I had any towels or anything in the house because I just don't think it, or maybe there was the one from school where the woman came round and I can't remember. And I think she was okay, well, we'll buy some pads or something like that. So I think maybe she went out to the chemist or something, or maybe she had a pant liner or something and kind of did that. Honestly, I can't remember, but it was all fine. It was all very, it was all very easy. And I remember reading it was the rite of passage, the Judy Bloom, are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. And I do remember having a conversation, I think it was a few months later with my dad, and again, my period was so easy, but which we can come on to, but having some cramps, or it was just, and I was this period thing's not all it's cracked up to be. He was yeah, sorry, darling.
You spoke to your mom. It sounds like you had a really good conversation. It was very open. How did you learn about everything else surrounding periods?
Oh, well, it was, again, it's one of these things that I wish I had more visible, more salient memories. Again, I didn't have anything traumatic or anything. I'm told by my mum at primary school that she was having some conversation at the school gate with some other mums. And basically she said they were doing have you told them about the birds and the bees? And I was yeah, I think I'm going to need to buy a book, or I'll get them a book or something. And then basically, apparently, my mum quizzed me. And then the next day she told them, don't worry, Alex Northover's told them everything and it's all correct. So, we then obviously had the conversation and she explained. But again, it was one of those things that, and then a few years later, there was the school talk. And I remember very clearly having a conversation. I was having a sleepover at a friend's house, and I remember having a conversation. We were all chatting with her mum about periods or something. And her mum was saying, I never connected what the period had to do with the egg. And we were like, yeah, because you knew there was like this cycle thing. And again, you were like, okay, well then there's bleeding and but I just never really paid attention. So now when I started going through fertility and suddenly it was like, well, what happened to your periods? I was like, well, I vaguely remember that I didn't get them very often, but I couldn't tell you like whether I ever had a regular period because I just didn't pay attention to it. And of course they say, you know, oh, it's quite normal for them to be irregular. So like I didn't pay attention except for the fact, I think because they were so irregular, when I was in sixth form or whatever grade that is, doing my A-levels, I was a loser. I wasn't having sex at that point, but I decided I wanted to go on the pill because I wanted to control my periods, because I was like, well, boys don't have to deal with periods during their exams, so I don't want to have to deal with having cramps. So I went on the pill, so because that way I could back to back and not have to deal with it. And the thing is, I had super easy periods, what I now know. And I guess that's the other thing, is that you have no idea what a normal period is. So when people go, are they heavy? Are they this? No idea. You know, who knows what's what normal is. So the honest answer is I don't remember very much, except that they were irregular and I just didn't really want to have to bother with them.
And after you went on the pill, I guess 17, 18, did you kind of just put your period to one side and just think, okay, the pill is taking care of it?
I know I came off it because, again, I do remember I lived in, I went to college in Florida for a semester, and my grandmother lived over there in kind of Costa Geriatrica. And my grandfather had retired to South Florida, median age 85. And I remember having a conversation. That was it. It was Thanksgiving. And no, that was it. So about a week or so, or whatever, at some point, I think I'd mentioned something about that I hadn't had a period for like 6 months or something. And I wasn't on the pill at this point. And she was like, oh my God, you must see your mother's gynecologist. And I was like, well, why would my mum have a gynecologist? Because obviously in the US, as you know, like everyone has a specialist. And my grandmother was like, well, that's ridiculous. Where does she get her pap smears? And I was like, the GP with everyone else. And then, of course, my period turned up at Thanksgiving, when everything was shut. I was at my grandmother's, who unsurprisingly didn't have anything. I didn't have anything with me because, again, because I just didn't really have them very often. I don't think I carried pads with me or tampons, or I just don't think it I don't think it happened often enough for me to be like, oh, I might get caught short with my period. So then I had to go driving around trying to find a drugstore that I could get tampons on Thanksgiving.
And then when did your period start to normalize at any point?
I don't think so. So again, it's one of those things that, and we can come on to talk about it, the advice, I wish I had been more aware and tracked. Because the answer is I don't know. I know I was on and off the pill, various points, various on and off throughout university. And basically then when I got together with my now husband, so pretty much all of my 20s until I came off to try and have my fertility checked out, because I had always suspected there might be something not quite right down there, because I knew I'd never really had regular periods. I couldn't remember how often or this, but I knew I didn't. Again, that kind of 6 month, my horrified grandmother just stuck in my mind, that I was like, yeah, I just remember not. And I always knew that I didn't know when, I know I didn't have that thing of, oh, I'm late. There was no sense of that. So I was on the pill for most of my 20s. And for as far as I was concerned, that was great, because it was like, well, I could control. I was like, well, why would anyone want to have a period if you don't have to have a period? And the doctor was like, yeah, you can back to back, so I kind of, I'd have one every couple of months, again, not a period but a breakthrough bleed, and as far as I was concerned, that was great. I was like, okay, well, why would I want to have a period? So the answer is I don't think they were ever regular. But I couldn't tell you how often or how, until I came off to find out at 28, to find out what was going on, because I just don't remember. And so again, I would I wish, if I had my time machine, I wish I'd paid more attention.
And when you came off the pill at 28, what was that? Can you talk a little bit about your journey of coming off the pill?
So I was very settled with my now husband, and it was that thing of kind of becoming more aware of getting older. And I knew we weren't ready to start trying for children, but I knew that I was like, we want this in our future. And I think I remember being on the tube or something else and reading something about, fertility MOT, which was, the egg counting thing. And again, it was one of those things that egg freezing had started to be talked about. And I didn't really know what that involved, but essentially I was sort of becoming more aware that, if we wanted children in our future, and being the sort of person that likes to plan, I was like, I think there might, maybe there's something going on, because I knew before I couldn't remember the exact details. I knew I'd never had a monthly cycle when I wasn't on the pill. So what I decided to do was to come off the pill so that I could then, in my mind, it was so I could go and get the egg counting thing, to find out, because my view was, okay, this might not tell you everything, but at least if there is a problem that we know about, then we can maybe make a decision. And I think I had a vague idea in my head. I was like, maybe I'll ask about egg freezing. I didn't know what it involved. I just thought maybe I'll find out about it. And so I came off the pill, and about 6 months later, when I still hadn't had one, and again, they say, it can be a few months, but at 6 months, I asked the GP, and they said, at 6 months, it's reasonable to do some blood tests. So they did some blood tests. And they said, it might, this might indicate PCOS. So we'll send you for a scan. So, I get the letter in the post saying, come to this place. And they explain in the letter that, we will do an abdominal and we'll do an internal one, so they prepare. Fine. I go along, and the sonographer does the abdominal scan and kind of wiggles it around. And he goes, again, I now know he was obviously counting follicles, and went, no, you're not PCO, so we don't need to do the internal scan. So then I basically left going, well, if it's not PCOS, why don't I have periods? So basically I think they just sort of said, we'll just wait and see, essentially, because it didn't say there was a problem, they were just like, well, I'll just wait and see. And the thing with the fertility MOT is, in order to have bloods done, because they were doing, they do your base hormone levels and an antral follicles count scan where they do the kind of egg counting. You have to have it done at day 3 of your cycle, or day 2 to 4, so the day 3 bloods. And they were like, so you have to call us when you've had a period. And I was like, but the problem is I don't have periods. Now, what I know now is that I could have easily asked for a small course of norethisterone or Provera, which is a form of progestogen that would just induce a bleed. I didn't know that at the time. And so they were like, okay, you have to wait for a period. And I was like, but the reason I want to come is because I don't have periods. So it took 10 months between coming off and getting a period. Oh yeah, and that was it. And they said, no, it has to be at least another one. And I was like, well, it could be another 10 months. And I do remember it was about another month. So that, for all I know, that could have been my first regular period. No idea. So I go to the clinic and I have the bloods. This is a private clinic, so you pay for the, the egg counting thing. And the nurse does the scan. And immediately she does the internal transvaginal scan, because she goes, well, you can't see anything. That was it. So I'd looked immediately, like I'd done some Googling before then, going, well, what could it be? And essentially Dr. Google said, you can't really see anything through the abdominal scan. So lots of people it didn't show anything on the tummy scan, but then when they had a vaginal scan, it was like, everywhere. And so immediately, as soon as she put the wand in, sometimes known affectionately by fertility patients as Wanda or dildo cam, there was just, it had the classic PCO, so they have like a ring of pearls. There was just follicles everywhere. And she was like, well, that's a polycystic ovary. And there's a difference between polycystic ovaries and polycystic ovarian syndrome, which I know you know. And lots of people have PCO, and that doesn't mean you have any symptoms. It's just a thing of your ex. PCOS is where you have the syndrome, and there's 3 criteria that you need. You have to have clinical or biochemical signs of hyperandrogenism. So my testosterone was fine, but I had acne. You need to have irregular or absent ovulation. Yes, 10 months no